TomoNews presents Face Surgery.
Three-dimensional printing technology can be used to create masks and human figures made from chocolates. But it can also help people to get a new life. Eric Morgan worked as a restaurant manager and had a happy life with his fiancée before doctors found a tumor the size of a tennis ball growing on his face. After the discovery, his wedding plans were cancelled. He immediately received cancer treatment, but his left eye, cheekbone, and most of his jaw had to be removed with the tumor, leaving a hole on his left side of his face. 8 plastic surgeries aimed at rebuilding his face did not make it better. He was still forced to eat and drink through a tube directly connected to his stomach. Eventually, he met a dental surgeon and an implant specialist. The doctor scanned Eric's skull and his facial features to build up a 3D image, then create a titanium scaffold to replace his missing bone. The scaffold was implanted and screwed into the bone on the right side of his face. Based on Eric's facial features, a silicone mask was created to cover the hole. Since the bone was made of titanium, it could be easily secured and removed using magnets. After the treatment, Eric could talk and drink water like a normal person again. Now he and his girlfriend can go back to their normal life and get married. Printing technologies have developed from 2D to 3D since the 80s. Nowadays, 3D printing is widely used in the medical field, such as replacing burned or damaged skin. Scientists hope one day 3D printers will be able to print organs to be used in transplants.
Woman sees dead brother's face on transplant recipient. In 1997, Richard Norris accidentally blew off half of his face with a shotgun. For more than a decade, he lived as a recluse because he was so badly disfigured. Norris underwent more than 30 operations to try and correct the damage, but they were unsuccessful. He became depressed and suicidal and rarely ventured out from his home until he underwent a life-changing surgery. In 2012, Rebecca Aversano's 21-year-old brother Josh died in a car accident. The resemblance between the two, including skin tone and bone structure, was uncanny, doctors at the University of Maryland said. Aversano's family agreed to donate her brother's face to Norris. The 2012 face transplant surgery involved 150 doctors and nurses and took 36 hours. Richard had jawbones, teeth, tongue, muscles, and nerves replaced. 60 Minutes Australia released a promo video where Aversano will see her brother's face on Norris for the very first time. Norris says he's since found love and is living in Virginia.
Disfigured ex-firefighter gets new face. A 41-year-old father of 5 underwent an extensive full-face transplant in August, which saw an 150-person medical team at NYU's Langone Medical Center perform a procedure that had an only 50% chance of success. In September 2001, volunteer firefighter Patrick Hardison suffered disfiguring burns while responding to a house fire in Mississippi. 14 years later, a team of plastic surgeons gave him the face of 26-year-old David Rodabow, who was pronounced dead following a cycling accident. The procedure involved slitting the skin at the back of Rodabaw's head, peeling off each side towards the ears, while including key pieces of bone around the nose, chin, and cheekbones. After the scarred tissue on Hardison's face was cut away, the donor face was laid over his head and secured into position using screws and metal plates, a grueling 26-hour operation. Hardison's new face swelled by 50% immediately after the operation, but gradually calmed down with the help of immunosuppressants he will need to take for the rest of his life. The entire operation cost between $850,000 and $1 million, the same cost as a liver transplant, and was paid for by a university grant.
Face-Off surgery, a success in Poland. The well-known plot in the movie Face-Off has become reality once again. A Polish man will now have to face a new life after being disfigured in a worksite accident. The donor face is stored in solution before the surgery. Doctors transfer skin from the jaw, eyes, and nose onto the patient. Then, they complete a series of complicated procedures including stitching the blood vessels together and micro-twitching the skin. The recovery has been great even though the patient can't talk just yet. but it looks like he has no problem showing how he feels about the surgery. It usually takes 1 to 7 years for patients to find donors. But the medical team was able to pull off the surgery only 3 weeks after the accident. Another milestone in medical history.
New face, new man. The Mitch Hunter story. Aside from that Rip Van Winkle beard, Mitch Hunter of Indiana here looks pretty normal, no? Well, this was Mitch shortly after a 2001 car accident in which, according to the Daily Mail, Mitch was a passenger riding with friends when their car slammed into a utility pole. While successfully saving one of his companions by pushing away a live wire, the high-voltage cable zapped Hunter with 10,000 volts of electricity for roughly 5 minutes. Mitch flatlined in the ambulance twice. The accident caused such severe burns, Mitch Hunter lost a leg and his face. Despite many surgeries, his face remained horrifically scarred. This former U.S. Army private once thought he'd never be able to walk down the street again without scaring children. But in April 2011, he was given a very special gift. Hunter became the second person in the United States, and only the third in the entire world, to receive a full face transplant. It's taken him 5 years of slow progress, but this week Hunter revealed himself to the world in an interview with a CNN affiliate, and wow, talk about life-changing. Hunter says he's now just another face in the crowd, which is awesome. He drives to work, goes shopping, catches a movie, with no one ever knowing he once literally did not have a face. Hunter received a new nose, facial animation muscles and nerves, eyelids, and the rest of a face from a donor in a 14-hour procedure in 2011. Mitch can now feel hot, cold, pain, being tickled, and even the sensation of rubbing his beard. And in what must be one of the best rediscoveries, he can now feel being kissed on his face. Mitch and his girlfriend Katerina held off on having kids until after the groundbreaking surgery. They are now proud parents of a little boy named Clayton. A very happy ending to a story that kind of puts the daily BS most of us go through into context, no?
A 17-year-old Chinese girl in Fujian province has received a new face from a skin graft grown on her chest. Shu Jianmei was just 5 when she was severely disfigured in a fire, losing her chin, eyelids, and part of her right ear. Doctors took a blood vessel from her thigh and implanted it into her chest. Next, a water-filled balloon was implanted underneath her skin and expanded over months to grow enough skin for her new face. With her new face, Shu can now smile properly and blush. For the first time in 12 years.
Filipino boy recovers from massive face surgery. A boy from the Philippines is still recovering after Australian doctors removed a massive growth on his face earlier this year. The family of 7-year-old Johnny Lamion said they hadn't gone ahead with the surgery earlier when the growth was smaller because they couldn't afford it. Thankfully, when doctors in Australia heard about the boy and saw photos, he was flown to the country and the 8-hour operation was done pro bono. The surgeons removed the encephalocele, a large sac of fluid that grew through openings in his skull. Because he'd had the growth for years, the work done was considerable: neurosurgery, plastic surgery, intensive care, and extensive imaging. The procedure was carried out in March, and Johnny is expected to fly home once everything post-op is completed.
Plastic surgery beauty. Facial surgery changed Korean woman's life. Who doesn't want to have a pretty face? A 29-year-old woman from South Korea was born with a bad bone structure that made her jaw crooked. People made fun of her, and she had to wear a mask whenever she went out. She couldn't find a job, so her mother had to support her. She thought she met her true love, but it turned out the guy was a liar. He conned her out of 350,000 Hong Kong dollars and ran away. She decided to have surgery to get her jaw fixed. She looks pretty now, and hopefully we'll find her Mr. Right.
Before and after pics of Asia's plastic surgery boom. They double up those eyelids, shave their chins into V lines. It's amazing what these women are doing for beauty, but who defines it? Trips to South Korea make the chin heart-shaped and narrow. She wants a pointy nose and laser treatment for her freckles. Face pumped full of Botox and eyelashes get extended. Cover scars with makeup so they don't know that she's pretending. Reshape the eyes, raise the cheeks, and drop the chin. A new nose for the profile pic and new boobs to show some skin. Postpartum liposuction and total breast reconstruction. She's a whole new woman. Family members need introductions. Color contacts help her eyes to match her fingers and her toes. Saving every paycheck cause she's embarrassed of her nose. My face is too round and my nose is too flat. Hey doctor, make me look like that. Tighten up those wrinkles so nobody knows the truth. We're trading in that beauty for an illusion of youth.
Plastic surgeon's botched surgery leaves woman's face crooked. A plastic surgeon in Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan botched a woman's facial contouring surgery. The woman always felt that her face and jaw were too wide and she wanted a better defined face. She saved for quite some time and then went looking for a doctor who'd do it for cheap. Unfortunately, during the procedure, the surgeon hit a nerve and severed some veins along the way. The woman's face began to bleed uncontrollably and she was finally rushed to emergency care. Luckily, better doctors at the hospital were able to save her and stop the bleeding. The woman bled out a little over 2 liters of blood, which is almost half the volume of blood in the average human body. Doctors may have saved her life, but not her face. If she was worried about how her face looked before, she's even more concerned now. The entire lower jaw of the woman's face is now crooked, and she's lost control and sensation in the left side of her face due to the nerve damage. A plastic surgeon we interviewed explained that it would take another series of painful surgeries to fix her face, and even then, full sensation to the left side of her face wasn't guaranteed. Hopefully, the lawsuit she files against the clinic that botched her surgery will be enough to cover the costs of yet another surgery to fix the damage. Don't ask, why the long face? Dangers and risk of facial fat transplants. Last month in Taiwan, a 45-year-old dance instructor, identified only by her last name, Ms. Huang, decided that her face looked too thin and wrinkled. Ms. Huang received monthly Botox injections, but the procedure was time-consuming and overly expensive. She hit on a new idea and decided to get a facial fat transplant. A fat transplant is when a plastic surgeon removes fatty tissue from one area of the patient's body, often from the belly or thighs, and injects the fat into a desired area. There are some advantages to a fat transplant because the patient's body will not have an adverse allergic reaction to the transplant material. Unfortunately, after Ms. Huang's procedure, she had soreness around the injection sites and was unable to move her face due to the pain. A few weeks later, another problem that emerged were lumps throughout her face. These lumps are usually caused by fat cells which die and become oily cysts. Over time, they harden and become solid lumps just beneath the surface of the skin. Another patient had a fat transplant just under her eyes, but whenever she closes or blinks her eyes, the oily cysts bulge and cause wrinkles. In the end, she had to have a surgery to remove the hardening cysts. The lumps can also cause dents and grooves in the body or cheeks near the injection site. Some plastic surgeons only recommend fat transplant to larger areas of the body, such as the breasts or buttocks. Man almost dies from cosmetic surgery procedure in Taiwan. Australian Kevin Wong, aged 27, almost died during a cosmetic surgery procedure to place a mandibular implant into his lower jaw. 3 years ago, Kevin underwent another type of plastic surgery called facial contouring to shave down his jawbone, because at the time he thought his face was too wide. After the procedure, he thought the doctors had gone too far and that his face looked thin. So he decided to come to Taiwan to have an implant put in to continue to shape his face. During the procedure, Kevin stopped breathing and his heart rate and blood pressure plummeted dangerously low. He was rushed to emergency services at Taipei's Chang'an Memorial Hospital, where doctors were able to revive him. Typical facial contouring surgeries involve shaving down the cheekbones or the jawline of a patient's face. The front of the jawbone where the chin is can also be shaved to make a smaller chin. If patients want a stronger chin or are dissatisfied with the results of their original surgery, a chin implant can be put in place through the inner part of the lower lip. Patients do not have to be fully anesthetized during this procedure, but should discuss options with their surgeon. Hopefully, when Kevin wakes up, he'll find his new face was worth risking his life for. For a more natural nose job, consider rib cartilage. There has been some curiosity about a Taichung woman's very natural-looking nose job. When asked about it, she said she had opted for an extremely expensive procedure involving rib cartilage. This procedure is often used for individuals who don't have enough bone or cartilage material to work with already. The bone comes from organ and tissue donations from deceased donors. The bone is thoroughly sterilized and frozen before being packaged and sent to plastic surgeons around the world. If you're not comfortable with having a piece of someone else's rib stuck in the center of your face, you can consider having a section of your own rib removed. The surgeon will make a small 2 to 3 centimeter incision on your chest and remove a sliver from one of your ribs to use in the rhinoplasty. The incision may leave a small scar and take up to 2 to 3 weeks to heal. So, if you're thinking about getting a nose job, Be sure to consult with your doctor if this procedure is right for you. Former boxing promoter and now transgender woman almost dies. For those of you who don't know who Kelly Maloney is, you may have known her before her transformation. Kelly Maloney, formerly known as Frank Maloney, is a transgender woman, but is most famously known as the boxing promoter who took Lennox Lewis to the top. This is what Kelly Maloney used to look like when she was still Frank Maloney. But earlier this month, Maloney almost died after having cosmetic surgery on her eyes to make her look more feminine. While in hospital overnight, she kept complaining about the blood seeping from her eyes after surgery. Nurses dismissed her complaints and sent her home the next day with an aftercare kit. Maloney said her daughter took her to emergency services after her entire head swelled and she became unable to speak. Surgeons had to perform life-saving procedures and put in drainage tubes. The doctors speculated that it may have been due to aspirin pills Maloney took after her surgery, which reduced her blood platelet count as well as her body's ability to clot blood and heal. Maloney will have to reschedule her gender reassignment surgery, which was originally scheduled for January 13th. Lip plumping surgery fail. Woman can't pucker up. A woman in Taipei traveled to South Korea for a simple lip plumping surgery. Only when she returned home, she discovered she was unable to pucker up. In addition to transferring fat from the woman's abdomen to her lips, the plastic surgeon also injected a muscle relaxant into the muscles around the woman's lips. It was because of the relaxant that the woman discovered she couldn't pucker her lips or even drink through a straw because the muscles of her mouth were unable to tense properly. Also, a week or two after the surgery, the transplant fat had been reabsorbed by the woman's body and her lips returned to their original condition. Now back to the thin lips she originally had, but no kissing skills left, the woman sought out a cosmetic surgeon in Taiwan who injected Botox into the muscles around her mouth to tighten them. So after all that money, fuss, and traveling, she's back to square one. At least now she can go back to posting duck face selfies.
Plastic surgery blamed for making all Miss Korea contestants look alike. Wow, who are these beautiful women? Are they the same person? There's been an increasing ambition with plastic surgery in South Korea. Recently, a beauty pageant in the country has come under a weight of scrutiny after photos of 20 contestants went viral on the internet. An internet user commented that this is in fact a surgical skill contest between surgeons. Another said that the winner to be crowned should be the plastic surgeon, as the growing trend in plastic surgery makes the beauties look remarkably similar to one another, only with different clothes and hairstyles.
South Korean plastic surgery is so good, you won't be able to pass immigration again. Wow, who's that sexy disembodied head belong to? Hey, get off my screen, lady, I was ogling some attractive chick. Wah, they're the same person. What witchcraft is this? But it's not witchcraft, it's South Korean plastic surgery, which the Daily Mail reports has caused problems for people trying to pass immigration in Chinese airports. Why, you ask? It's because that South Korean doctor can change your face, but he can't change your passport. Yeah, I wouldn't let her in either. In response, some clinics in South Korea are offering certificates describing their recent work. Whether they went in for double eyelids, pointier nose, shaved off jawbone, or face liposuction, they just don't look like their passport photos anymore. But don't forget, you can cut your face, but not your DNA.